Welcome back. So, guide dogs need you.
So the charity are actually calling on DINKS.
Now, DINKS, that is not an offensive word. It stands for Dual Income No Kids, to raise future guide dogs, as almost half of people admit to delaying parenthood in favour of owning a puppy.
So we've got in the studio with us guide dog fosterer Eugene Lynch and guide dog in training Betty. And Betty is a Labrador. She is asleep. That's the impact. That's your Bev Turnhouse on so many people, Eugene. Now, you've been fostering. This is you're on your 13th dog?
Yes.
So how long do you train them for?
They arrive to us after they've been with their puppy raiser for usually about a year. So we get them about a year old, and we have them for between 3 and 6 months for the last period of their training. So they have professional trainers at Guide Dogs. We take them to and from the office every day, and we keep them all weekend, take them for free runs in the park and that sort of thing. So Betty here is a year and 8 months old, and she's doing really well in her training. As you can see, she's very focused at the moment.
Very placid.
Yes. That's when they learn all the kind of special skills of a guide dog. So, you know, finding the curb, how to cross the road, how to go up and down stairs, finding the button box when you're crossing the road and that sort of thing as well.
And why these DINKS, Eugene, this dual income no kids? Why would they be the right kind of people to foster these dogs?
Well, I think for my partner and I, when we first started thinking about volunteering with guide dogs, we always wanted to have a dog. And we thought, because we're both working, the dog might be home for long hours. We'd have to either get a dog walker or some kind of daycare. We didn't think it would be fair on a dog for us to have a dog. And then we saw this opportunity and we thought, well, this is the perfect solution, because the dog's busy all day and lots of people paying attention to her in the office. And, you know, we're working full time. We have her basically in the evenings and at the weekends. So it's a really good way of both volunteering with a charity that does so much for people, and also then looking after a dog at home.
But I'd have a problem with this, Eugene, because I've got a soft spot for dogs. You must become incredibly attaching, because how long are they with you for?
They're with us usually for between 3 and 6 months.
Well, that's a long time.
We did have one dog during COVID, and because of all the lockdowns, we had her for 15 months.
So then you have to give her up?
Yes. So we've done that now 13 times.
How do you cope with that? Because that might deter people watching, thinking, I'm going to get really close to this
I think you have to go into it with your eyes open. So as much as the first time you do it, you think, well, I'm not going to get too attached and it's going to be okay, your heart does break every time, I'm going to be honest.
That's it.
It is a little bit heartbreaking every time, but it's bittersweet because you know that dog is going on to change somebody's life and they're going to have a fantastic life. They're very motivated and happy to do their job, and so you're kind of helping to prepare them for that.
Are you allowed to keep in touch with what's happened to the dog and get sent regular photos?
We sometimes get updates. It will depend on who the new owner is and that sort of thing, but sometimes they will let the trainers know, you know, how the dog is doing or send a photo or something like that, and we get to know from that as well.
And how important is it that the charity gets more people like you to foster these dogs? Because is there a shortage?
Yes, partly because of COVID. You know, there was a real slowdown in the number of new dogs that were coming through the programme. So there's a big waiting list now of people who need a guide dog. There are a lot of guide dogs retiring as well, because, you know, guide dogs can only work for a certain amount of time. So there were lots of people on the waiting list. They've been waiting for years for a new dog. So they're trying to get as many dogs through the programme as possible. And to do that, they need more puppy raisers and they need more fosterers like my partner and me.
And do most of the dogs you've had, have they gone on to be successful guide dogs?
Yes. I mean, they don't... you know, a percentage of them make the cut, basically. Not all guide dogs not all guide dogs are destined to be really great guide dogs. So the first dog that we had already been withdrawn from the programme when we got him, so we only had him for a few weeks, and they knew he was going to be rehomed as a pet. That happens sometimes, but plenty of them do make it, and the ones that do, they just do such an amazing job. They're incredibly well trained. They're really happy to do that job as well, and to be a volunteer who has a small part in making that happen.
She's so happy that she's literally so relaxed. She's fallen asleep here.
She's very relaxed.
Do you let them in the bedroom?
There are a lot of rules about that sort of thing. So at home, you can't allow them on the couch, you can't allow them on the bed, and that sort of thing. It's up to the guide dog owner who eventually gets the dog whether they decide to allow them. But if you start doing that when they're young, they won't stop doing that. So we have to be very careful about it.
We're tight on time. How do we? People want to do this. How do they get in touch? Who do they get in touch with?
The easiest way to do it is go on the Guide Dogs website or search Guide Dogs Fosterer, and it will come straight up. You can get in touch with Guide Dogs. They will have a conversation. A lot of people like us might think, well, that's not suitable for where we live or anything like that. Normally, that's not a problem.
Okay. Well, I'm sure our viewers will be keen to do that. Eugene, thank you so much. Thank you, Betty, as well. We will see you on...
From big events to intimate dining,